Hello, and welcome back. So, we've gotten 2 levels of my research done that I needed to. At this point, I'm wanting enchantment 5, and then I'm going to push into construction at least 4. I don't know if I want to push 6 currently, although that would give me bottles of living water, which are pretty damn good. Definitely want to get to 4, so we'll just go ahead and throw a bunch in like that. It's going to be guaranteed for enough. And we had a proclamation from Yomi, which I was kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, so finally the war has happened. But no, it hasn't. And apparently Ulm and TNN are still going at it. Big deal. It doesn't affect me at all. And I'm continually telling my soothsayers with no paths, guys, go for it. And like the crazy religious fanatics they are, they're doing it. And then we've had a charismatic preacher has appeared carrying word of a rival pretender. Damn, that sucks. Oh, wait, I didn't have any Dominion in this actual province, so no, that doesn't suck. That's pretty damn good. So I'm hoping for maybe another gold event or two because I'm really wanting to get a couple more temples up right here. I really want this to heat up. I don't want Yomi to have multiple attack vectors across here, which is something they currently do have due to the damn cold dominion over here. And if I can bump up my dominion a little bit more, that would be excellent. So let's go over the mid-game spiel. Basically, what is this, beginning of year 4? Late spring year 3. Okay, so we're barely into 2 years in the game. Man, do I want to do a late game spiel already? Well, whether I want to or not, I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now. Oh man, TNN, you guys really want to try, don't you? I would not suggest it, but whatever. Um, one more turn on my Palisades. I guess this is a good time. So, what have I liked about the game so far? Um, Honestly, the fact that the AIs have not been terribly aggressive this game. If they're ridiculously aggressive, you're obviously going to get nowhere close to this level of fort spam. And that's just the way it's going to be. It's not like, well, I should be surprised. If they're not going to be aggressive, honestly, I can just keep throwing money into infrastructure and get my giant mage stacks going, research up all the spells I need, and then just basically walk around and just basically kill whatever AI I want. Of course, it's not gonna be quite that easy because as I'm sitting here doing nothing, they are also beginning to fort spam, and the AI will have forts all over the damn place too, which will make long protracted wars with them very long. This is going to not be a quick game by any stretch of my imagination. It's just how the damn nation works. Or at least the build I'm using with the nation. Probably go with like a double bless rush. You can have a hard time taking out a capital before the AI can get another fort going, but it's always an option. Um, Basically, I would say that I'm a little depressed that I put a fort up here. And right here, I probably should not have put a fortification. I probably should have just put a lab. A lab would allow me to be recruiting these great little horticulturalists, and they would be giving me some earth magic, damn it, by now, so that I would actually be able to start looking around for earth magic and get this damn earth gems up so that I could empower somebody, because that's going to be not terribly important probably in a game this size, but it really opens up the options for the nation overall. Um, Skogu here is nice because now I actually don't have to buy a Witch King ever in this game. In fact, I'm not going to buy a Witch King ever in this game. And he's opened up the option of vampires. So, Luck 3 has kind of paid off. I mean, I'm not going to be disingenuous. I would honestly have taken either of the other 2 heroes in a heartbeat over him. But he does have his little perks that he can toss out. So, I guess whatever. He opens up a whole new facet of the game, but so do the other ones. That's the thing that you got to keep in mind. Being able to get a miraculous cure-all elixir, that's pretty important actually, because that allows me to begin curing all these afflictions that are, well, not afflictions, cure the diseases. There's a guy that's diseased. I can tell by the number of afflictions he has. This guy is diseased, and being able to remove those is pretty good. And I not only need one of them, I need two, three of them, because I want one in each major recruitment center that I have. And they're going to cost me, I believe it's Nature 5 if you forge them. They're going to cost me like 30 gems a piece, I believe. Ridiculously high. But she also comes with air magic, and air magic is fairly important because you notice I keep suiciding these little guys without any paths. That's because they're fairly useless outside of a couple of things. One is this right here, and you just stick them in front of all the rest of your troops, and they make great arrow catchers. Why? Because you can tell them to stand there for 5 turns. They're not going to be much good to me otherwise. However, if I can get my hands on fire or air magic, this changes. Air magic especially, as 2 of my other heroes have air magic. At that point, what I do is I go to Construction 6, and I find some air gems, obviously, with them, because I need air gems to make the plan work overall. Even the one with homesickness is fine, because she's immortal, so when she dies, she pops back up in your capital, and afflictions begin healing immediately. So you basically run her, site search, site search, site search, and then she dies, and she pops back up in your capital. And then I take her out, and I site search, site search, site search, and then she dies and pops back up in my capital. So eventually I should get some air gems even with her. What I use those air gems for, with either of them, to be honest, because they both have air magic, is I forge bows of war. Bows of war is a bow where you shoot an arrow, and it magically splits into 13 arrows. So it's like turning this little 35 gold guy right here into 13 archers with short bows, which is pretty damn nice. It actually gives them a really good use, and then I don't have to buy as many archers. Obviously, I'm not buying any archers at this point, mainly because I'm not really fighting anybody. I'd probably think about it, especially versus Yomi, because they're not terribly good at taking arrow fire. Actually, they'd be pretty good against TNN as well, because I can knock off the glamour from range. I don't have to get into melee before I can knock it off. But being able to access that side of it is ridiculously good as well. Hopefully, this luck 3 will pay off, and I'll get one of those 2 heroes. Crossing my fingers. I know nobody can see that, but I am. Okay, so that's pretty much what I've liked, is I've just basically been able to sit back and do the exact thing that the nation is best at, which is just spam a ton of mages and just sit on your hands until you have a bunch of game-winning spells, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. What I have disliked about this game, the exact same thing I just talked about. This is not a terribly interesting playthrough so far. None of the AIs have attacked me. I've basically been able to just sit on my hands and do whatever I want. Honestly, this is more forts than what I ever need. Honestly, it's more than what I'll normally spam. The aggressive AI appears to be Olm, who went to war quite early, and appears to be at least on the semi-losing end of it. If they had been next to me, we might be looking at a slightly different gameplay here. They're not who I'm next to, though, so obviously it doesn't really matter. I just kind of leave it on random. Some of them are defensive, some are aggressive, and some are balanced. I can tell you by them going to war like they did that they are obviously an aggressive AI. Other things I've disliked is actually the luck skills. I really wish I'd went with growth. I didn't think I was going to sit on my hands like this all game. I thought maybe it'll give me enough gems to do some pretty cool thugging stuff with the nation, which, let's be honest, it still can. I've got a pretty decent bank of gems, and I've got 3 of my Clam of Pearls. I'd like to get 5 to 6 of them, though. I'd like to have a few extra in the bank, because then I can move that mage out without really worrying about her. Not having to replace her because I don't have more Clams of Pearls, which are pretty damn important. So let's go ahead and get into why the Clam of Pearls and why I've been researching the directions I have. I obviously explained enchantment because I want to be able to skelly spam from a defensive position with Anaris, which, since I'm basically sitting on my hands, is probably going to change a little bit. We're going to grab Skull Staffs instead and make a bunch of little 45 gold mages, so I'm not straining my gold reserves too heavily. And I'm just going to turn all of these death gems into Skull Staffs for death to mages. Basically, these little guys that are fairly worthless, you give them a skull staff, they're now a death 2 mage. It's going to cost you 10 death gems, and the death gems can go towards other very good things. Considering where I'm at in this game right now, I don't see why I would do anything else. Generally, I would make a skull staff with him, though, if I was a little more pressed, and I would begin throwing them into my gem dump right here, summon Shade Beasts. And this is why I want a 4 death Witch King in my nation overall, because mainly I want the Shade Beast, and of course I'm going to have him run around and try to find some 4 death sites, or 3 death sites. What this is 15 gems for 15 summons. Now these are Shade Beasts, they are undead dogs basically. They're not terribly great statted, they have pretty decent attack. However, they are ethereal, so it is kind of hard to hit them with just normal troops, but you know, again, Mage Priest can take care of them fairly quickly. Not a whole lot of MR nor a whole lot of hit points. They rely on the ethereal for their survival. They also have a neat little ability where when they actually kill something, it raises as a soulless, meaning every time they actually do kill any chaff that my opponent has, I gain a few more really crappy chaff myself. It's a pretty decent gem dump, especially at a 1-to-1 ratio. However, you get 3 additional summons for every extra level of the caster, and it requires death 3. So a death 4 is automatically going to summon up 18 of these. Then if I spend 10 gems on a skull staff, that is going to go from 18 to 21. And the reason I think going with the skull staff is a good idea in this situation is because the 10 gems, if you're looking at the 1-to-1 ratio, obviously we're not counting in the bonuses here, it's literally going to take me 3 1/4 turns to actually get enough summons out of this to have already paid for the skull staff, which is pretty nice. And then I still have the skull staff for whatever I need it for. As I'm not pressured, I'm probably just going to shift all my gems into those little spirit guides and make them death 2 to skelly spam so that I do not strain my economy. Because while I did go with the luck 3 over the growth 3, obviously we can see from the gameplay here that I'm just sitting on my hands. Growth 3 would have been vastly superior to continue watching this total income increase as my populations continually grow. I don't have that, so no real point in whining about it, but it is what it is. For good or bad at the moment, it just is. There's really no point in talking anymore about it, because that's pretty much it. Another thing I have disliked overall is it's been an unusual Let's Play. Generally speaking, this is the amount of land you will basically see with a 2 expansion party. Obviously, you can scale that ridiculously higher. You can produce a 5 sacreds and 1 person to bless them every single turn, and they should be able to take out most provinces with literally 5 sacreds. It's not really a hard thing to do with them. And for heavier provinces, you just meet 2 groups up, because we saw what happened when I had 11 of them. They basically steamrolled most provinces. So 2 of them together, obviously if you merge the groups real quick to take out a harder area, you can easily come up with, 25 to 30 provinces if you go that route. You just gotta wonder, can you hold that much land? Grabbing it all is not as important as how much of it can you hold. That's a very important part of the equation that I think a lot of people forget when they start talking about expansion. So, let's talk about the spells, because I got completely sidetracked there. So I said I needed Conjuration 4 for Light of the Northern Stars, and this is something I mentioned in the building, as in you might want to be able to build Banner of the Northern Stars, which automatically casts this spell. So what the hell is it? So this is a battle enchantment, and it's going to cost 2 Astral Pearls to cast. This spell makes all, that's your opponent's wizards too, on the battlefield more powerful in astral magic. Obviously, if they have no astral magic, it's not going to suddenly give them some, but all astral mages on the battlefield are going to get a bonus of 1. So what does that mean? That means that in the early game, you're forced to get any use out of your little Astral 1 guys. You have to communion them up to be able to cast anything useful. And I'm not saying you can't cast something like Starfires, because you can. It's just really, really inefficient and terrible to do. By going the Light of the Northern Stars route, I have, well, because I don't have Banner of the Northern Stars, the way I'm going to have to do it is I will have a single mage communion up with 4 communion slaves underneath him, and his job will be to cast Light of the Northern Stars, meaning then all the other mages in my group become Astral 2, and those are usable battle mages. I can Mind Burn with them, I can Stellar Cascade with them. I have options. Whatever the options are, they are varied, that is true, but I have options at that point, a lot of options, especially when you look at the number of mages I have overall. I have a ridiculously large number of mages. The problem really becomes Astral Pearls required too. You don't find a ton of Astral Pearls with this nation. In fact, you should usually expect an income of 1 to 2. That's pretty standard for when I'm site searching around. I've already got 3, which is pretty good. I'm actually very happy with that. But, 2 is generally more what you will find with the nation, meaning you can only field a single group of mages just using the gems. So how do you take care of that? Come on, butthole, I hear you running around out there. So how do you take care of that? Well, Astral does actually have a temp gem generator, and believe it or not, it does not generate a single gem like the water lens or the fire in the jar. It produces 2 astral pearls. And what is this magical item, you might ask? It is the Clam of Pearls. It takes water and nature to actually make, but is going to give you 2 temporary astral pearls. Obviously, nowhere near as good as in Dominions 3, where these actually made real astral pearls, but none of the gem generators do that anymore. Well, I think the Burning Eye, there's the fire version and the water version at Construction A, but you can literally only build one of each of them. So it's not terribly efficient. You can't spam it like you did in Dominions 3. But this is what I throw on all of my groups, and suddenly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the mages I need to communion, and all of these mages are, whoops, all of these mages are suddenly astral level 2. All of them. All of them. All of them. Does anybody see where this is going? This is a lot of damn battle mages suddenly. That's a massive amount of battle mages. This is a ridiculous amount of battle mages. I probably have 30 battle mages here that can just keep casting. So that really opens up some strategic options in your mid-game going into your late game, because you don't have to communion to get use out of all these damn little Astral 1 guys. So that's pretty important, and that is why once I finish up the Tham 2 and then I get the more usable spell here at Evocation 5, Conjuration 4 followed by Construction 2 is very important, because that's really what's going to give my battle mages the oomph that they need. So obviously the Enchantment 5 is pretty self-explanatory. Normally you'd probably be in some wars by this point, and you would just have some Inaris who, remember, have a very hard problem moving around. But when I said you use them in a defensive way, let's just go ahead and look at it. If I have a bunch of Inaris and I march down here and I'm planning to go to war with Tanir Narag for whatever reason, or actually, I'm planning to attack Yomi because there's fewer attack vectors they can strike back at, and suddenly Tanir Narag attacks me, right? Well, actually this is not frozen, or this is frozen right now, so 1, 2, 3. It's going to take me 3 turns to get up there. It's ridiculously slow. But now begin to look at the placement. I can actually create the Inaris here, here, and here. So which of my lands actually are not within 1 turn's movement for me to go ahead and defend these castles? Those are the 2 right here, because those are both mistakes on my part, because I'm an idiot. Of course, I am an idiot, but I'm going to go ahead and blame you, the viewer, because. No other real reason, just because. You're not actually here, so it's really easy to blame you rather than myself. That's pretty much why. So that's kind of where I think the Inaris really have a great strength. And don't get me wrong, you can use them on offense. You just got to be careful that your opponent's not going to outmaneuver you with them. I think that's especially going to become a problem in multiplayer. Having a map move 1 unit means that they can just run circles around you, or they can catch you, whichever they want to do, very, very easy. Um, the overall plan here, I don't have any blood versions of my warrior sorceresses. I didn't get one, did I? But I didn't recruit that many of them overall. I got 2 death versions, 2 nature versions, and a single water. So let's just say I pull a blood version. I told you that they would have ridiculous communion control, and obviously it's only a nature 1 blood 1 mage. But again, remember, this is communions we're talking about. So we can boost this by adding more slaves to the communion. So what was I talking about here? And this is going to be a fairly complicated thing. We're just going to pretend that this unit has blood. So what I would do is the first turn, obviously, I'm going to give it blood slaves. That's very important because you need blood slaves to cast some of these spells in order to cast Sabbath Master. So now I have joined the communion with all those little Astral 1 guys. Okay, big deal. I'm sure everybody's thinking it, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Up next, and this is obviously late game, I don't have all this research done. Up next, you are going to go ahead and cast Relief. The battle enchantment reduces fatigue of all friendly units on the battlefield. Basically, it's going to remove, I don't remember, 1 or 1 to 2 fatigue from all units overall. And I'm sure you're sitting there, rolling your eyes, going, okay, come on, get on with it. So that's not very much. That's not going to help a communion a lot, right? So up next, what we're going to cast is going to be Personal Regeneration. Remember, all buffs actually go downstream to all the communion slaves. And remember, when those communion slaves suddenly hit 200 fatigue, they start taking damage instead of actually curing more fatigue. How do you help offset that? You get personal regeneration on all of them, so that when you hit that 200 point, you've bought yourself 1 or 2 extra turns before they all kill over and die. Okay, so I think you can kind of start to see where this is going. Obviously, I will say though, rather than personal regeneration, what you're really aiming for is mass regeneration so that all of your troops on the battlefield eventually regen. But that actually comes in ridiculously later. And then we're going to go to Alteration because the next spell, you've actually got a free spell here. You can kind of cast whatever you want at this point. My personal suggestion, as long as they don't have lots of fire magic or lots of fire-based attacks, is going to be Mass Protection. Basically, you're going to give Bark Skin to all friendly units. Now, Bark Skin means that you have Bark for skin and you do take more damage from fire. Know who you're fighting. Know that your opponent might try to counter it if you keep casting Mass Protection, but upping your protection from 11 on all of your Sauromatia and Amazons up to a reasonable number and then giving them regeneration as well, they are pretty damn good. So the mass protection doesn't really help the communion fatigue problem, but it's just a nice in-between when you have an open slot right here. And finally, for the 5th and final spell, what you're going to want to cast is Reinvigoration. So again, you're going to need another blood slave, meaning you'll need 2 blood slaves per battle per communion that's actually using this strategy. And what it's going to do is cost you 100 fatigue and 1 blood slave. And what it does is remove all fatigue. This happens to count as a buff too, which is very funny because you can spend your first few turns basically overblowing with the big spells that are going to throw a ton of fatigue on your communion slaves, and then you can go, turn 5, let's go ahead and just remove all of their fatigue. And now we've reset them all to 0. I mean, how do you get much better than that? That's as good. There's no better combo for fatigue control that you're going to find for communions. There are some other ones that, I guess I can mention. Summon Earth Power actually gives you Reinvigoration, which will clear, 2 fatigue each turn, I believe, for Summon Earth Power. That's pretty nice if you can get it into the communion as well. Strength of Gaia is a nature magic bonus of 1. Big whoop, that's not really the part that you want in it. However, this also does give you regeneration as well. So you can skip the personal regeneration version of it for the Strength of Gaia if you need to. Obviously, I can't actually access these spells currently. But what would be nice is being able to get that Astral Earth combo I talked about and get a Crystal Matrix going so that I can go ahead and get one of my guys to join these communion with some Earth magic and actually cast the damn Summon Earth Power. That would be very, very good. That's something I actually want to do overall. You can also do, other things. If you're just doing a massive amount of astral spam, power the spheres with all of your little guys, that's going to lower the fatigue a lot. Now, not only is casting spells higher level than what they can normally cast, if I have a communion spamming out Soul Slay, it is obviously going to be harder for the on the communion slaves rather than say Paralyze, because it's actually a much greater ability than what they normally have. But it gets even worse actually when you start casting magic types they don't even know. The fatigue actually starts crawling really, really high. You have to be very careful and lots of slaves for these types of communions. So that's what's nice when you start getting to these late game communions, that you have the reinvigoration to basically go, okay, turn 5 reset button back to pre-turn 1, but right as the battle started, on your communion slaves at least. Another really personal favorite of mine with this nation overall is you come down here for Evocation 8. And what you're going to... No, it's Evocation 7, isn't it? Yes, I'm an idiot. Well, yes, do not come to Evocation 8. Excuse me. Vortex of Unlife is terrible. Do not research Evocation 8, or don't do communions with Death Mages, because you don't want them casting this ever. They actually... It deals 16 armor negating damage, and those that die raise up as very crappy troops, undead. The thing is, the game will actually spam your own troops if it can hit more of them, so it's not a good deal. You don't want to go that far. What you want to go for is Evocation 7, and I love to communion up some Inaris with a bunch of guys underneath them and spam Clouds of Death, which is 9 area of effect, and it's going to sit on the battlefield for 2 turns plus 2 for every extra level of the caster. And the damage is 9 plus 1 for every extra level of the caster, and this is armor negating magic resistance negate. So if they pass the MR check, they go ahead and skip this, right? Well, that's what's really fun about communions, because communions actually give you a innate armor or magic resistance penetration bonus. And you can also, since you have fewer casters, actually manage to forge some of the items and throw them on your masters and your masters alone, that will allow you to basically penetrate some of their magic resistance. Obviously, I don't have them here. It's going to be Eye of the Void, which lowers your magic resistance by 2, but you penetrate 2 of theirs. And the other one is... shit. Spell Pin Booster or something like that? I don't remember the name of the second one. But you can basically get 3 penetration out of that, plus you get some magic penetration through the thing, which means that you're throwing out 9 damage they can't get through, and they have to walk through it on the battlefield. You can wipe out whole armies ridiculously fast with it. You also, at the same time, manage to pick up Storm of Thorns, which, if you can afford to throw some some of your gems into Thistle Maces to turn all of your Warrior Sorceresses into Nature 2 Mages, because they're all Nature 1 naturally. That's a Nature booster. What you have is a range 30, shoots 7, and it's basically going to shoot... I said Vine Arrow, not that good. Sure, you're shooting 1 for 20 fatigue, and it's not really that much damage. Storm of Thorns for 20 fatigue is shooting out 7 of them. That's a pretty damn good deal. There's no reason to complain about that at all. I probably won't push Deep Evocation, because I really think you're going to get more use out of the mass regeneration out of enchantment, or the mass protection out of alteration. Not to mention, alteration will also give me Will of the Fates, ridiculously good. Again, you're going to need the communion to cast it, but you're going to be able to make it to where a bunch of your guys can no longer be killed, or have a much harder time being killed. So that's kind of the whole game plan with the communions, and I think it's really interesting because you start out the early game, you basically can't cast anything with these guys without a communion, so you have to have the communions. Then you get Light of the Northern Stars, and suddenly you have tons of battle mages, so you don't want a communion up at all. And then suddenly you hit these late game spells, and you suddenly are looking like, well, I can actually communion up and do some very, very great battlefield-wide spells or some very great damage spells that I do not normally have access to. And I think that's a fantastic thing about the nation, because it's a weird progression. Communions, no communions, communions. Which is exactly how I play it overall. You just got to be careful. Rain of Stones, which I did mention earlier, but for those of you who don't know it, is right here, and it hits the entire battlefield and it deals 14 damage, meaning it will basically brain all of your giant communion death balls. If you didn't figure it out, you need lots of people to do these sort of communion things I'm talking about. Like hundreds of 100 mages is not a small number to really be looking at overall. So I wanted to go ahead and get a couple more. You can't get into the swamp this turn. Okay, well, get up there and get another temple ready to go up on that side of things. So I'll just go ahead and script up this, or do up this turn, since there's really nothing going on here. So we'll just keep throwing these guys away. Alright, so go ahead and site search here. Whoa. Go ahead and site search. Let's go ahead and clear orders and go ahead and retreat. Retreat. Actually, clear orders and then retreat, because I don't want you casting and passing out. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Did I happen to manage to site search that? Not yet. We'll go ahead and search here first. Better chance. Thrones always have a better chance of having gems on them. It's the way it works. Farmlands are always going to have a negative multiplier. Obviously, that's got other things. While thrones are always going to have a positive multiplier. Wastes also are going to have a positive multiplier. They have a greater chance of having gems. And depending upon the terrain type, various terrain types have a better chance at different types of gems. I forget most of them. Underwater tends to have a good amount of fire gems. I do remember that one offhand. And there's usually a good amount of nature gems in the forest. Go figure. I think swamps actually have a good chance at death and water. Okay, so no, I don't want you researching. I want you site searching, because I don't want to move my other guy. I want him basically just sitting in my capital forever in case I need more clams of pearls, which is very important. Obviously, I've got 3 currently, and that can actually go for my 3 forts right here. However, I want a few extra in case I have to split some of these into multiple groups. If I go to war with, say, Tanir Narog, this group is probably going to have to split into 2, and this will probably split into 2. Honestly, I'll probably split these 2 forces into 3 overall. Basically, you know, take a portion of this and a portion of this to form a third one, so that I can fight, you know, basically all along my borders wherever I need to. Plus, I need one over here, so just having some backup for when you're ending up later in the game or whatever, never a bad idea. So let's go ahead and keep forging Clam of Pearls. And this is a kind of mind-numbing nation. I know I keep saying that, but I 1000% believe it. Alright, so that's the end of it. A few other tricks that you can do. This would be something I probably should have thought about earlier, but considering this is where I started my first fort, this is not going to be possible. Probably should have started my first fort in like one of those positions right there. But this is a forest only, and with this nation, obviously being able to move your mages around is a very good thing and something you want. In that kind of spirit, what you should probably think about is maybe instead of building this damn palisades here, because palisades can't have roads, they're not advanced enough, what you're going to do is put a fortress right here, which is 200 gold more. That's why I couldn't do it so early in the game. It's my fault. I probably should have tried to put a fort in one of these positions instead. And that actually opens this up where I can now move mages actually quickly through here. If I end up at war up here with them, and I, for whatever reason, need more mages, I can now actually sweep through here to here and then up to here or wherever I need to from there. Having the extra movement's always nice with these big communions. So we're going to end the turn, look at the beginning of the next. Alright, so we've got Construction 4, we've got Enchantment 5, there we go. Look at that RP. That is ridiculously high, so actually I don't want Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy, not a bad area to go with overall. You can do some kind of interesting things down here. Mostly a bunch of new astral spells. Here's your Paralyze. You can go ahead and Paralyze. It's pretty good against your SCs and stuff like that. Soul Slay, you're still actually going to have to end up communioning up to cast it because it is a Astral 3. And it is magic resistance and negates. However, the damage in it is 999. It deals max damage. So whatever it hits is automatically dead. Another really decent one is going to be Enslave Mind. Again, you're going to need communions for this. However, if you pass the magic resistance check here, you basically just steal one of their units, whichever one it happens to be targeting. I will say you got to be careful, and the reason I don't like going in this direction is because if I do happen to communion up, when my guys go off script, they absolutely love to spam Paralyze, and they love to spam Enslave Mind. And generally speaking, the way I play, I want them casting other things. However, you do have a really cool thing down here in Master Enslave. Obviously, I did not go with the Fountain this time, but if I went with the Fountain, this is one of the reasons I like to go with that Astral 4 plus the Crystal Coin gives me Astral 5, which to get Astral 9 to cast this means I need, let's see, 2, 4, 8. I only need 16 slaves to do it. Of course, you're thinking, well, the Fountain can't move. Yes, you're actually right there. Except for Astral has the Teleport spell. And it has the very good, where is it? Astral Travel spell. Basically, you can teleport but carry an army with you. So, that's pretty damn nice. Being able to teleport on top of somebody or teleport into a defensive trap with a Master Enslave, really nice. Really nice. I do like it a lot. However, I don't want most of my guys casting a lot of the spells there, so we're not going to go in that direction. So I found a Farm of Plenty. Not the most useless site in the game, but not far from it. They've got a new prophet. I really don't care. Looks like Ulm actually got their ass kicked right there. I'm kind of surprised. I thought they were starting to do fairly decent. And then, of course, we're sacrificing my guy again. I might think about trying to take this sometime soon. I've got a Yeti to join. That's all right. 445 gold, I'll take it. Honestly, any gold events are great for me at this point because I'm starting to near the gold cap, and I really want to get a couple more temples up here. I actually want to get another fort up too. That'll allow me to pump out basically 5 mages for this fort every single turn. You know, we're probably going to start moving mages across there because, well, that's unfrozen, unfortunately. Oh, this is actually going to turn into a pretty long thing overall if I just sit here, so I'll probably script up the rest of this turn because there's really nothing interesting happening at this point. And I'll end the turn, and I'll probably actually script up the whole beginning of the next turn just to save some time. It looks like it's just mostly movement at this point. May actually stop and go ahead and script up all my guys right now because that way I have the scripts already ready in case I do go to war. I don't have to spend 20 minutes going through and scripting, figuring out my scripts. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and call that. There's the Farm of Plenty for those that don't know it. 50 supply point bonus. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, the swamps never have good supplies, but who cares? So here's the Yeti. Wow, actually came with a catch harm. It's only for females. That doesn't work on you. Um, yeah. I thought normally the Yeti came with a few. There they are. So he's going to actually come with some pretty decent Yetis, and this is an event that only happens on the Throne of Winter. By controlling it occasionally, you will get some Yetis, just like I did. So they got 46 hit points. Protection's not that good. Defense is not that good. They're big balls of hit points. However, they do actually have a kind of crappy ranged attack, but they deal pretty decent damage with a rock when they get in range, and they have a pretty good chance to hit it, and very good strength so that it deals good damage. They also have very high morale, meaning it's very hard to rout them, and the magic resistance isn't terrible on them. The best thing about them, though, is upkeep cost 0 gold a year. That's actually probably the best place I could have got them overall, because this is my probably most concerning position overall right now. Probably going to think about how in the hell I can take out this monolith, too. I mean, I'm really thinking I might have to go... It's going to be under Conjuration, isn't it? Is it going to be under Evocation? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I really don't have a good way to do it. I know that Arcane Bolt, there it is. So, it's only Precision 3 and only range 35, but it's only Astral 2 to cast, so I can field a million casters that can cast the damn thing. And it's going to deal 10 damage to, and it's armor negating, which means I ignore his 34 armor. And due to the fact it's magic, I ignore things like the Astral Shield that he put on himself. I ignore the ability that he did Body Ethereal, so he's ethereal. I don't have to actually attack him because this is a magic attack. And I just deal lots of 10 damage values to him until he kills over dead. He actually strengths a Gaia. Does he regenerate because of that? Probably so. I don't know. He's going to be a pain in the ass to kill. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed, although it's, let's be honest, a very boring playthrough. And I'll see you next time.